Hi all. As many of you know from my YouTube videos, I'm quite aggressive sometimes with pawns. Aggressive pawn advances, which a lot of people steer away from sometimes because pawn advances do create weaknesses. So it's kind of rule breaking in effect when you kind of push a lot of pawns forward to go on attacks. But there was an impressive game which struck me from the Gibraltar tournaments where Mamedyarov, who's over 2700, one of the top seeds, he played an interesting game from many perspectives against Molina. So Molina played d4, and here's the first surprise: g6, which is a kind of waiting move, not committing the knight. And you might wonder, why would you ever play g6? Is it important in its own right? And someone asked me a few months back, actually on my site, about g6, and I thought, what's the point of g6 when you can play knight f6? Everyone plays knight f6, surely. Knight f6 is the move, and the second best move, surely, is d5. And anything else is a bit silly. Although you can play e6 if you want to try and avoid, for example, the bishop g5 lines. E6 was quite popular by Botvinnik. If you want to avoid, bishop g5s, and now play f5 for a Dutch stonewall. So at least you're guaranteeing the move c4. You could also play c6 if you wanted to invite a Caro-Kann to give white the option. Do you want to play the Caro-Kann? Just play e4 and we'll transpose into Caro-Kann. But g6, is it important in its own right? Well, actually, considering a 20 move loss in London Classic, this is personally very relevant to me. I wish I considered g6. Because if you want to disguise the fact that you want to play the Dutch defence, or particular variations of it, it's not just e6 which is useful. You see, the thing is with e6, you're committed to a Dutch stone wall usually. If you're going to play f5 later, then usually you're going to play d5. And what if you wanted a Leningrad? Because the Leningrad Dutch is g6, bishop g7 and f5. So coming back to this g6 move, now I guess many of you have never played g6 to d4. Admit it. Please admit it in the comments, because this is quite amusing. But I'm going to sell you the merit of g6 here, and you might want to try it based on this game. So knight f3, and now he pounces with f5. So we've got a sneaky introduction to the Leningrad Dutch, avoiding lines where white might have wanted to play like e4 and f3 later as a gambit, or bishop g5s. With knight f3, that's quite a commitment to that move, knight f3. So we go now into a Leningrad Dutch. But even now there's a difference actually, because black does not even need to play d6. So it's tweaking the car a bit more. Customized car here time, no d6. In fact, after b3 there's a bit of a weakness on the diagonal. Why does black need to play d6 and potentially create more weaknesses on this diagonal? No, instead black celebrates b3 immediately by playing c5, no need for d6, and white now plays e3. And this is the thing actually that strikes me, and it happened last year, that a lot of the top seeds, for some reason, in Gibraltar, if you look at their games last year like EventDate and Nigel Shaw, they're really aggressive with their pawn structure. Or maybe the games are just generally aggressive, and the pawn structure and the pawn chain moves are just a function of that, just one aspect of aggressive dynamic play. But in this game we see a lot of aggression with black's use of pawns. So knight e4, d5, look how many pawns black is pushing. And now on the queen side even, b5. So the queen can't take as a bishop a6. That's an advantage of leaving the knight here for a moment. Now bishop a6 anyway. Queen c7. Okay. So the knight's kicked back, knight d6, but it blocks in the bishop for a moment. So otherwise d5 would be a problem immediately. But is black getting a problem d-pawn? D takes c5. And he doesn't want to take on c5 here with his queen. That might run into a problem like knight d3 in fact. Let's just quickly check that one out. So actually white's given us slight advantage here, and queen c5 inferior because of knight d3, okay, and then getting rid of this bishop, which would weaken these squares around the king, really, as we know now, that queen takes c5, knight d3, okay, it is the move, apparently for advantage for white. So what he did was the lesser evil move here after d takes. He played knight f7. So let's get back to the game and switch that off. Knight d3 anyway, and now the exchange of dark square bishops, but a little bit more on black's terms, with the knight having to go back to b2 to waste a bit of time. Queen takes c5, protecting the d pawn, but the queen's attacked, queen b6. But if we look, there's a lot of pawn moves, and you might think, you get this in lower sections of chess tournaments, a lot of pawn moves like this. It's almost like drafts. What if this pawn was here? All you need then is to move that bishop and play that pawn there. You have a sort of drafts formation with the pawns. Look at all the weaknesses of the dark squares. Is this like appalling, all these weaknesses, would you say? In a lot of games, it's weaknesses like that which are often decisive anyway. But here, knight b4, e6, a4 now. So white's trying to pick on things here now on the a file and activate the rook, of course, on a1. B takes, knight takes, and now rook takes a4. So it looks as though white's doing well. It's got some pressure now on the a file. So rook a1. Now knight d6. But what are these knights actually doing? Where are they heading for? Black is sort of discouraging f4 all the time because the knight can head to e4 now quite strongly, it seems. So queen f2, rook ac8. So yeah, the higher rated player has an aggressive formation, and although it looks as though these dark square weaknesses, there's loads of them, are they that exploitable? So that's the key question. And maybe that's also the basis of a lot of aggression from higher rated players, that apparent weaknesses or aggressive pawn moves, they realise that the weaknesses, if they're not exploitable, then they're not really weaknesses. And it's that perception which is very important here, that if black, it's the state of white really, because white's position looks a little bit like dull with most of the pieces on the first rank here. So how on earth would these dark squares be exploited anywhere? So g5, just going for it now on the king's side. I just wondered, this is just a strange game in so many respects. So many pawn moves everywhere. And often, if I have games like this, where I'm having to sort of push pawns on both sides of the board, I do start wondering, am I playing like a total beginner? I start having doubts myself that actually I must be creating tons and tons of weaknesses here. But just look at the passivity of white's pieces, and then you must realise that, are these weaknesses really exploitable or not? That's the key question. How would you answer it? How active is the opponent's pieces? How much initiative does the opponent have and pressure? Not much. Not much piece activity, not much initiative. These pieces are all sort of sitting around here as if they're on holiday on the back row at the moment. So I know I'm being a bit naughty in my comments, and I should have actually looked at Molina's FIDE rating. I'll try and put that in the comments after. I wish it was here. So anyway, a5, tying down white for b4, I guess, if white wanted to consider b4 there, because rook d4 did support b4, if that was useful. Or is there another idea now of rook d2? Queen d2. Okay, so at the moment there's no crushing of the rook with e5 because rook takes d5. But is that rook a problem here? Now black, again, another pawn move. Actually, it does target the rook, kind of, now, because the rook hasn't got a retreat back. Black just plays f4, creating this f5 square to attack the rook. So not only is black pushing pawns, black's also getting even more aggressive squares for the pieces. So, white's pieces are still virtually on holiday. The knight here and the rook here. What's going on? So g takes, and now b4 is played. Okay, knight d7, and now, Okay, white is winning a pawn. B takes A5 was played, so Queen A7. But this is obviously, you know, losing. If this moves, then there's a horrible pin now, and Knight B5 would be pretty nasty. In this position is from an engine point of view. Okay, what is going on here in this position? Is it actually really bad? It looks as though undermining this diagonal. Yeah, it's pushing pawns in black's favour. It's just, you know, what are these pieces doing? Okay, initially they were on holiday, but the rook's even worse now on d4. It's just an exploitable target in white's position. I think even though black's offered a5, this is better for black, apparently significantly better. It's going up and up, the evaluation. So b takes a5. Now, I guess I'm a bad influence on everyone's play, because I love games with aggressive, you know, pawn advances, and like the King's Engine, I suppose, was an influence in that. And we should really be aiming to play solid games. And I make things worse by picking out games like this, where black's just, I don't know, black's play looks crazy, but it all makes sense because of the white pieces. There's no majorly important checks. You know, this one, okay, you just move the king and then rook g8. You can't use that file against the black king. So we're going to have to see, you know, how did white manage to lose all the active pieces and allow black to play so aggressively? So anyway, going back to the game, queen a7, bishop h3. Okay, the bishop decides it's going to do something. The king just moves away, offering e6 as well. Okay, king h1. Maybe that pawn's poisoned in some respect. What would happen if bishop takes e6? Some nasty kind of refutation like f takes e looks pretty logical. Just to undermine that diagonal. Let's have a look. F takes e. So that's pretty horrible. Queen takes... Oh, rook takes f3 is a bit of a crusher here. And this knight at the moment is holding up e5 from the check. And then this rook is just an exploitable target. And this rook's just sitting at home as another target as well. Even worse than being on holiday, being set up as a target just to be, you know, knocked off like that. So so basically, yeah, I just... So white plays king h1. Now knight e5 threatens knight takes f3, forking queen and rook. Okay, queen e2. I mean, this is just a weird game. It's a contrast to many games we've seen in the Tatar Steel tournament. I thought it's a bit of light relief, this game or something. F takes e, which, okay. So the rook's now en prise, and after queen takes, now black just plays knight takes f3. So nasty pin on the queen. Rook d3. Now the final move of the game, leaving... sorry, a very good move, okay. If I give you 20 seconds, I wonder if you can spot it here. I hope I didn't just give a clue away. So what does black play here? Okay, 20 seconds starting from now. Okay, rook takes c2, and that threatens that. Although that leaves the queen en prise, it threatens rook takes h2 mate, and white resigned here. I wonder if there's any defence technically. I doubt it, because just look at the state of white's pieces, really. So bishop g2. So in fact, rook takes g2 is pretty crushing, threatening actually a new mate, perhaps with rook takes h2. Actually, definitely not just rook g1. So king takes, and now the queen can come for check. Knight takes h2, queen g2, rook f1, and it gets pretty gruesome there. We don't need to mate in 18 there. Okay, but it's gruesome. It's clearly gruesome. So it's a fascinating game. I suppose the instructive theme is it's okay to push all your pawns if the opponent's pieces are on holiday. Maybe that should be the instructive theme of the game. I think I'm going to put that as the title. So how did the opponent's pieces end up being on holiday here? I don't know. You know, g6 is a safe way to get into the Leningrad Dutch. So I want to try this in the live commentary game. g6, not knight f6 or d5, but sneakily getting a Leningrad Dutch, provoking that knight f3, which becomes an excuse to sort of push lots of pawns aggressively with the omission of d6, so accelerating dark square pressure across the diagonal now without playing d6. There's another nifty little trick, as far as I'm concerned, from this. And now e3, okay, the start of passivity, because white's pawns are also, you know, e3 is weakening squares unless that bishop's got a good reason for needing this diagonal. e3 is to be avoided sometimes. So knight e4, how did white get so passive? The pieces here, d5 instead of d6. The bishop being stuck on b2 is not particularly great. It's unprotected, and we know that from a lot of other master games, that often there's a disaster because this bishop's by default protected by the king, and this is unprotected. So white's in a kind of passive position. Queen e2, and I guess the omission of white playing c4 is punished here with black playing b5. So white's game is actually fundamentally passive, and you could say that black's pawn advances everywhere make sure that white's pieces do remain passive and on holiday. And also, like after bishop a6, you know, scaring away the queen potentially. This knight e5 is the only aggressive piece, and that soon to lands now on b2, which isn't the ideal, you know, to fianchetto a knight on b2, but that's what happens. And okay, so it seems okay as if there might be exploitable weaknesses in theory, but if white's pieces are just all over the place, then it's not going to happen. There's no access routes to all of these squares, so that's not a big deal if we sort of prioritize the weaknesses created by the pawns in black's position as around the king or in the center. As far as central control, these knights on b2 and b1 are not really influential on central squares in this position. So, and okay, the knight does come to d3 and then goes to b4. As soon as there was an interest in some central squares, you know, maybe, you know, parking on f4 would have been good, you know, at some points, but no, the knight just heads off to do some technically interesting exercise involving the a file, and then the rook like comes in as though, you know, what's happened to white's center? These pawns are all actually weaknesses. In fact, you could argue, has white created more weaknesses than black here that are actually exploitable? Because this queen is actually quite aggressive on that diagonal, and the knights are kind of more aggressive than the counterparts here. So it's all a function of, you know, how aggressive like the pieces are really. And this rook's okay on f8. It's naturally extending scope and creating squares for the knight for f5 and weakening the diagonal at the same time. So it's development plus exposing weaknesses because of that silly rook on d4. So I hope I'm not being too critical of white's play. It's sort of an amusing game. That's all I can say about it. You know, I mean, so king h1. I mean, Mamedyarov, he's a great player. You know, that's why he's like so high rated. So I expect, you know, most people will be crushed by him. And white embarrassingly is in this quite nasty pin now with that rook. And now black just offers the queen. So a crushing game, which ended here after rook c2. But I just thought, blimey, that's how to play the Leningrad Dutch with the initial g6. I hope you got something from it. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.